Imagine being so spoiled, so entitled, and such a brat that your parents literally disown you. This is what happened to the spoiled kid in today's story. So we're going to call the subscriber who submitted this story Brian. Yes, we're bringing the names back, don't worry. Anyways, there was a spoiled kid in Brian's life. This is a bit of a longer story. I've been bringing these back. I know you guys enjoy them. But anyways, right, so there's a spoiled kid in Brian's life that was, a very, very interesting character. He was notorious around the neighborhood. So there was like one super nice house in the neighborhood, and obviously the spoiled kid lived there. And, he only lived there like for a third of the year because his parents had like crazy expensive houses all around the world in different countries and different states. But while he was there, while he was in the neighborhood, he was an absolute menace. And the kids really knew him because for the majority of the time, middle school, high school, he lived in the neighborhood during the years of or not during the time that he'd be going to school. So he was never there during the summer or winter breaks or something like that. But his parents liked the school district, so they sent him to school there. So anyways, the kids in the neighborhood, including the subscriber Brian, just slowly over time got they just kind of got used to him. They were aware of him, and everyone kind of knew his antics. However, as Brian got older, he became kind of more and more aware of, how much money he had access to and kind of the stuff like that. And some people with age, some spoiled kids as they get older, become less spoiled as they kind of become more socially aware of the fact that, in all reality, it was kind of luck-based that you were born into this. So you should really act as if super grateful and it's fine that you have it. Like at the end of the day, some people have it, some people don't. And if you have it, I feel like as long as you act nice enough and you're kind of not showy with it, you don't brag about it, you don't use it, in the wrong way, then I don't really have an issue with you. So some kids, as they get older, they start as little kids who are spoiled and then they kind of, they grow out of it. But others, like this spoiled kid, kind of grew into it in a sense. He was always kind of known as being a bit jerky and a bit showy, especially when he was just showing off things that he didn't get himself. But it got really bad the older he got. So this is a pretty long story of the road to him getting kicked out from his parents' house and them legally trying to disown him. It's a doozy of a story, but it all starts one night, right? So at this point, the subscriber and his friends are actually done with high school. It is the summer that they graduate. So actually, for once, the spoiled kid is actually staying in the neighborhood for the summer. Maybe later on he's a trip to somewhere else. But for the first time, it is a summer when the spoiled kid is going to be interacting with the other kids. So Brian, the subscriber, is kind of just prepared for whatever's going to be thrown his way. But he's also excited because it is, it's finally, they graduate. They're going off to college. This is going to be the last hurrah he's going to have with his friends who he's known ever since he was a little kid. Most of the people who went to the middle school and the high school, he's known forever, and they live in their neighborhood, so he'd hang out with them all the time. So this was kind of like the last kind of thing. This was the last kind of push before they go off and start their lives or whatever. So this all started one Friday night, and the spoiled kid kind of pulled up to an event where they were a little kind of gathering, Brian and his friends were having. And, he pulled up in a really fancy, expensive car, right? So Brian had a car, but it was super cheap car, whatever, which honestly, I think your starter car should be extremely cheap. Not so cheap that it's dangerous, but cheap enough that, you have the ability to kind of mess around with it a bit. I don't have a car yet, but I know when I will get one, I'll make sure that it won't be some... I won't go, I definitely, first of all, don't buy it used, or do buy it used, don't buy it new, and cheap cars function. As long as they're not going to blow up in your face, they function. If the brake works, the car is good enough for me. Anyways, though, he pulls up in this super crazy expensive car, which is kind of expected for someone the spoiled kid, right? And he pulls up, and he's just talking about how, he's just, extra arrogant. I think the kid, was kind of more vacant. He didn't really the thing is, right, the kid never really hung out with the other kids in the neighborhood during high school, just because, he was off doing his own thing. He would hop into class, kind of be a jerk then, and obviously, during the summer, he wouldn't be there, and he wouldn't hang out with them on the weekends because he was too busy doing his rich kid things, right? But he decided to pull up to this event. He came in this super crazy expensive car. And people are kind of just looking at him as he kind of walks around, kind of being buddy-buddy with everyone as if he was super close friends with them. Brian, the subscriber, and the other people didn't really care too much because, you know, I mean, they're not going to be mean to this kid. This kid isn't great, but during this party, right, it was getting a little bit late. This kid was starting to get a little bit drunk. Or Apple, okay, I'm just going to say drunk. YouTube doesn't actually care that much. Yeah, sure enough, right, the kid starts to brag. He starts to brag a lot about how he's got the craziest whip ever, how he's got access to all these things, how everyone else has to be like worker drones and go into like work a 9 to 5 and then have like 1 minute of retirement and then die while he gets to be like have this crazy awesome life. And people were starting to get a little bit resentful because unfortunately, that may or may not be true. The truth is that this kid probably doesn't have to work. Or so he thought until he literally got disowned, which is coming up. And trust me, it's worth it. I'm really trying to build a good picture of the spoiled kid so that there's a good payoff when he gets disowned at the very end of the story. So anyways, right, at this point, you know, the spoiled kid's like, all right, I'm going back to my house. And this kid had enough to drink where they were like, dude, you can't drive. Because, like, obviously, disclaimer, one of the worst things you can do is, you know, have something to drink and then drive. Get an Uber, stay at a friend's house, or have a DD, okay? Just a little thing from the channel. If I can spread a little bit of good knowledge, I'll do that. But anyways, this kid ignores everyone. No one was able to get his keys. He gets in the car and literally crashes into the first tree. People go over to make sure he's okay. He is miraculously totally fine. But something that isn't totally fine, but is very totaled, is the car. Yeah, completely destroys the car. The car is totaled. It's not a good situation. The spoiled kid actually has to end up calling his parents. His parents drive over. They're very clearly not happy because, you know, their son was, you know, drinking and then got in their car. They're not his car, their car, right? Wrecked it. They're happy that he's okay, but obviously they're not happy about the fact that like a $100,000 car is completely totaled. Not going to be great for the insurance, right? So sure enough, right, you might be thinking, okay, well, spoiled kid crashes a car. Does he really get disowned from that? No. This is a long list of things that the spoiled kid has done. Because he doesn't stop at totaling one car. The spoiled kid ends up totaling another car. Anyway, so you might be thinking another party and he gets in again. Nope. This is literally the next day. So the next day, you know, the subscriber and his friend is kind of walking around at the mall. And they're kind of walking out to the parking lot. I think they're going to get into their cars to do something else. So it's a subscriber. It's some of the subscribers' friends. And I don't know, something like that. And so sure enough, right, the subscriber, he, you know, is kind of like walking around and he sees a pretty fancy car pull up into the driveway or the parking lot of the mall. And once again, you know, the parking lot of the mall, the car pulls up and actually, instead of going into a parking spot, pulls up, idles behind them, and rolls the window down. Sure enough, it is the spoiled kid. The spoiled kid, kind of is once again in another car. In literally any other family situation, I can almost guarantee you that the spoiled kid would not have access to a vehicle literally one day after totaling the car before. But since his parents had a bajillion dollars and probably infinite cars, they kind of just gave him another car because they're like, we don't want this kid around the house anyways. So sure enough, the spoiled kid is driving around in his new car, and he kind of like pulls down the window. He's like, "What's good, guys?" And they're like, "Oh, like you got access to another car so fast? Like, that's pretty crazy." Loki trying to throw a little bit of shade at him, but, you know, completely goes over to this kid's head. He's like, "Yeah, this whip is actually nicer than my last one." And then he goes on to be like, as you can see, this is a model S1 24/7X5. I don't know much about cars. Just talking about how nice the car is, right? And, you know, the subscriber and his friends kind of just sitting there, kind of just looking at each other like, okay, man, that's real nice and all, but we do not care. And so sure enough, the kid's like, yeah, so I don't know. If you know any like banging chicks around here, don't forget to let them know that I have a super sweet ride and we'll take them and give them the time of their lives. Peace, bros. Rolls down the window and literally drives off into the back of another car and totals this car again. The subscriber is just sitting there and just shocked by the fact that The kid literally within 5 seconds of rolling up his window from bragging for 2 minutes straight about his new car after literally just crashing his old car, within 5 seconds just slams into the back of another car, totals his car, which he's once again completely fine. And I don't even know how you totaled your car slamming into the back of another car, but this kid is just so incredibly good at wrecking his own car. Okay, my mistake. I was about to say wrecking his own cars. No. He is incredible. He should go into the professional leagues of wrecking your parents' cars, because that is what he is incredible at, apparently. So sure enough, right, spoiled kid gets out. He's like, man, you're in my way. Like, you have to get out of my way. And like the other guy was literally in a parking spot. The guy was still in his car. Thankfully, he was good too. He was parked in a parking spot, and he gets out and he's like, you rear-ended me, but you didn't just rear-end me. You rear-ended me when I was in a parking spot. Like, how am I in your way if I'm in a parking spot? And the spoiled kid's like, well, you should have seen that I was coming and got out of the way. Obviously, the spoiled kid is clearly wrong in the situation. And the spoiled kid calls his parents because when the guy's like, what's your insurance? Like, let's trade insurance or whatever, and starts taking photos. Spoiled kid's like, what's insurance? So he has to call his parents. His parents come over, and his parents are very not happy because, after their son drunkenly crashed their car the night before, they give him another seemingly even more expensive car, which is low-key on them for that much trust. And he crashes into some guy who's parked in a parking lot. Like, dude, how do you even crash into a stationary car that's parked in the parking lot and end up totaling the car? I mean, it's just crazy enough that he crashed into a stationary car in the first place. But, dude, what? Yeah, so anyways, the parents are very much not happy. And from that point on, he drives, they give him a significantly less expensive car. It's still, like, really good. It's still, like, $20,000, which is an insane amount for a car. But it's nothing that, like, the spoiled kid would want to flex. The spoiled kid would only flex a car that is $100,000 or more, because anything less than $100,000 on a car is a brokey car. Obviously not. Like, as I said earlier, if the brake works, it's a car, in my opinion. But, yeah, the spoiled kid would not be flexing his, oh, my God, it's only a Tesla. Oh, I'm so poor right now. Yeah, that's the spoiled kid's mentality. So, while he was still able to drive around a lot, he was not able to flex it. However, you might be thinking, oh, the parents disowned him just over, breaking a few cars. Like, sure, the kid's a menace, but really disowning him? Like, kicking him out and all that? No. The story continues. This kid gets worse. So this kid keeps on showing up to these parties, right? And the thing is, it's not only just these parties. This kid just, like, appears around the town a ton. And the kid shows up, doesn't flex his car too much, but shows up in his car, just kind of like appears places where people are, either that being during the day or at night if there's a party or something. This kid just kind of like appears places, which is kind of weird, but they kind of just don't question it. And the thing is though, this kid was super egotistical, and he also was like super aggressive. Like, he was kind of crazy, dude. So like he would like just randomly get into fights with people. And at parties, it was a little bit easier to just be like, kick the two people out. Even if he just, like, fought someone, like, randomly. I don't know. Like, they'd still kick the person out as well who he fought. Which, just to, like, mitigate the whole thing. Just to, like, cool it down or whatever. So whenever the spoiled kid came up to, showed up at a party or something, there was, like, a 1 in 5... there's a 1 in 3 chance that he was going to get kicked out because he tried to fight someone. But the real problem started when he just started fighting people in broad daylight. So yeah, one day at the mall, this was about like 1 or 2 weeks after the whole he crashed 2 cars in like the span of 24 hours incident, the subscriber was hanging out with a friend at the mall, right? And for some reason, the spoiled kid was just walking around there. And for some reason, this kid had beef with his friend. The subscriber doesn't totally know what his friend did, but his friend after the fact was like, dude, like, I think he asked for test answers junior year, and I just didn't give it to him. But, like, other than that, I can't think of anything else he'd have, like, beef with me about. So basically, the spoiled kid was so petty that he was willing to hold beef with someone because they didn't give him test answers back in junior year. I mean, this is the spoiled kid we're talking about, so it's not like I'm, like, wow, blown away or anything. It's kind of expected. But anyways, right, at the same time, so the subscriber and his friend is kind of walking through the mall. The spoiled kid sees him, and the spoiled kid literally just like out of like nowhere basically jumps on this kid and just starts swinging on him. And it's ridiculous too. And the thing is that's funny is the spoiled kid decided to do this in front of the mall cop. So yeah, the spoiled kid just starts swinging on this kid. This kid obviously isn't gonna like, well, it's not obviously not gonna fight back, but he knows that he has a better chance of just kind of like trying to like avoid the confrontation entirely. So he kind of backs out, especially he sees that there's a mall cop right there. I think, you know, the subscriber's friend had a bit more spatial awareness than the spoiled kid did, because the spoiled kid probably wouldn't have just like charged on him like head first if he knew that a mall cop is literally 10 feet away. But sure enough, right, the subscriber, you know, is just watching as this all happens, and the mall cop almost like immediately, like 25 seconds in, jumps in, breaks them up, and puts the spoiled kid under arrest. I mean, as much as a mall cop really can. He calls the actual police because, like, this, I don't know. I guess he didn't have a lot to do. And so, you know, he asked the subscriber and his friend to stick around. Eventually, the police show up. The mall cop gives, you know, his eyewitness or whatever. You know, he's interviewed and eventually the parents are called. And the way that the mall cop and the police agree to let this kid go is it's a little shady, but the parents, like, if they choke up enough money, yeah. So I guess the town they lived in was low-key a little bit corrupt, because the cops were telling the parents, like, look, if you hand us $1,000, this won't go on anyone's records or anything like that. And, you know, the parents were pretty upset about this. And, you know, you might be thinking, okay, crashed a few cars, got in one fight. No, one fight? There's literally 4 to 5 other occurrences that I was told, and I was implied that there was a lot more. But I will quickly run through them. I'm not going to spend too much time on each because that'd be a little ridiculous, right? One time at an ice cream shop, one of the subscriber's friends was getting ice cream when the spoiled kid came in and apparently just didn't like his fit. He said it wasn't drippy enough, so tried to punch him in the face. Once again, the cops are called, and it's the same cops that like are around the entire like neighborhood or whatever, or the town. So the parents once again have to pay them off $1,000. The next one happens at the movie theater. So you know, the spoiled kid wanted to sit with these 3 guys that went to school with the subscriber and lived in the neighborhood, but there was only 3 like seats left in the row. So the spoiled kid said, "I want to sit in between." But the 3 kids sat down, said, "Hey man, you can sit behind us." So the spoiled kid literally grabs the kid in the middle and like picks him up by the collar of her shirt and like pushes him out, and then starts just like wailing on the kid. Once again, the police come. Once again, another $1,000 down the drain. This kid's insane. Another instance, right? And remember, this kid is only doing it again and again because he genuinely believes no matter what he does, he can get away with anything. I'm just going to tell you one more of these because at some point they all kind of sound the same. But anyways, this literally just happened. They were walking down the street. The spoiled kid saw some kid that he like remembered was like, I don't know, kind of weird in freshman year, but like had totally changed by then, and was like, "You're weird in freshman year," and just socks him in the face. Like the most ridiculous stuff ever. Once again, the police come over and they're just like, call up the parents. They're like, "Do you want to just like Venmo me $1,000 at this point to make it easier?" So yeah, a lot of corruption is going down in the city, but at the same time, the thing we're supposed to be focusing on is every single time this happens, the parents are getting more and more and more upset. And apparently every single time this is happening, they are screaming at the kid. It's not as if they're like, okay, then. At the end of the day, they keep paying the fines, which honestly, they probably should have just let their son go to jail for a night or two. Would have been a lot more effective than just getting him out and paying the cops $1,000 and yelling at the spoiled kid, because pretty clearly yelling at the spoiled kid was not functional. And the thing we've made it to that part of the story where I tell you the thing that really drove them over the line to disown the kid and kick him out. So remember, this is accumulation of everything. And if you made it this far into the video, comment spoiled down below. Real quick, we're bringing back the secret word of the day. So anyways, the subscriber has a friend. We're going to call this friend Will. And Will, a night before, was at a party that the spoiled kid was at. And the spoiled kid had a girlfriend. This girlfriend, he like legitimately like flew in from Dubai. Like he messaged some like Instagram model on like, he just like DM'd some Instagram model on Instagram, paid for her flight, said, "I'm going to like bring you all these like crazy things or whatever. So this like very beautiful girl from Dubai like was just at the party. It was the weirdest thing ever, and only something that like the spoiled kid of a super rich parent would ever do. And anyways, since the subscriber's friend Will didn't know who this girl was, he went in and introduced himself. The spoiled kid immediately, since he has a 1-inch weenie, right, just was threatened by this and needed to intervene. So sure enough, the spoiled kid is like, goes up to Will and is like, hey, like, you're trying to steal my girlfriend. By the way, this was not his girlfriend. This was like some kind of like escort type business. Or I don't even know what it was. Like, I genuinely don't even know. Maybe it was his girlfriend, but not really, if you know what I mean, right? So Will immediately backs off. He's like, all right, man, like, I don't know who this is. I was just introducing myself. And the spoiled kid didn't like try and fight him, which is kind of weird. And I guess the subscriber and the spoiled kid kind of just assumed that the subscriber and his friend Will kind of just assumed that the spoiled kid, I don't know, gave up or just didn't care about it anymore. Like just didn't care about the whole instance. But they were wrong, because the next day they went to the beach because it was during the summer. And there was kind of a beach in the area that they were at. So it was a cool kind of attraction. A lot of people would go there. Water was nice enough. It wasn't like a jacuzzi or something, but it was nice. It was temperate enough for like a pool. And I don't know if it's a lake or an ocean, doesn't matter. It's a beach, either way. So they're at the beach. And the beach, the lake or ocean is big enough that, you know, boats can be in it. So maybe it is like, maybe they live in a coastal town that's by the ocean. Because the spoiled kid's parents have a boat. And they let him drive around in the boat, which is honestly more productive use of his time than like crashing cars or beating up kids. So especially more after he started to beat up a bunch of kids, they encouraged him to go more and more in the boat. So the subscriber and his friend Will were just kind of like in the water. And that's when they see this boat coming at them. And they're like, okay, that's a little bit weird. And that's when the boat continues to come at them. So the subscriber is like, hey, maybe this guy isn't really paying attention. Let's get out of the water. So they start swimming away. And the boat gets closer and closer. And it's very apparent that they're coming after him. So the subscriber and Will barely make it out of the water before the boat like literally crashes onto land and almost smashes through Will, right? Almost really seriously hurts him. The good thing is, right, the spoiled kid is not a good enough pilot to really aim this thing correctly, but smashes it onto land and goes like right by Will's head. It was a very close call. Obviously, a bunch of the people on the beach were freaking out. Boat was completely ruined. The spoiled kid was yelling at the subscriber and Will like, you made me crash my boat. That's what you get for talking to my girlfriend. And they're like, what? So yeah, once again, the parents are called. And there's like some lifeguards, security officer, police, whatever. It's a whole scene. Everyone has to clear the beach. And the parents come. And for the first time ever, the spoiled kid's parents do not come in a rage. They're not yelling. They're not freaking out. They're just completely silent. They're very calm and collected, which one would think that would mean that they were kind of used to this and they were just like, whatever. But no, actually the opposite. They're done at this point. So comes over and the police officer's like, all right, you know, this is a little bit bigger, so we need a $10,000 fine and we'll clean this all up, right? And the parents will say no. The police officer's like, okay, well, you know, that means we have to like pursue legal action with your son and all this kind of stuff. And they're like, our son? No. Him? Yes. And they point to their son and the spoiled kid's like, what? This kid remembers like 20 or something. He had to repeat high school a bunch of times, which is fine, but just context. And they're like, yeah. Oh yeah, by the way, Billy. They look at him. Let's call him Billy, right? Like, you are no longer living with us. You have no respect for us. You have no respect for anything that we've done for you. It's time that you learn how to actually be, you know, a real person. And he's like, dude, what? Like, just pay the fine, Mom. Like, it's whatever. They're like, no. And at this point, like, they explain that they have been on, like, the verge of this for a while. But as of tonight, they're kicking Billy out. And as of a couple weeks ago, they had been starting to look into the process of legitimately disowning him as a son. And he's like, dude, what? That's not chill at all. Screw you guys. So yeah, they ended up not paying the $10,000 to the cops. So the cops decided to pursue him. And this kid was an adult. I didn't get an update on exactly what punishment happened. But apparently, like, Billy was still he was able to, he was able to get some money out of his parents before they completely cut off all of his credit cards. So he was able to spend a lot of money really quickly, but then all of his cards got frozen. And the subscriber, like this happened like last summer. So to this day, the subscriber has not seen Billy since. Maybe he's in some like random European country. He has no idea. But moral of the story is don't take advantage of your parents because, you know, maybe they'll just drop you one day.